He who can destroy a thing can control a thing. Now in the books this refers to Paul and Spice, but in the trailer recently released for the Dune Part 2 movie, the line is moved and has Paul say this whilst an atomic goes off in the background. And so today it's atomics we will look at. The history is taken from the Dune Encyclopedia and also the original Dune novel by Frank Herbert and its sequel Dune Messiah. So what are atomics? They're basically nuclear weapons under a slightly different name, perhaps slightly more focused in some ways in terms of the damage they do. There are rules around them, around the time of the original Dune novel. But where do those rules come from, and how were the rules formed? The rules in world are called the Great Convention. According to the Dune Encyclopedia, houses see maintaining a stockpile of atomics as a key part of defence. They were initially made during the time of Old Terror. Earth at that moment was broken down into various houses. A man was working for House Washington, called Einstein. He invented them, and they were used to settle a dispute with House Nippon. The Dune Encyclopedia goes on to say, these weapons were of such a primitive nature that fewer than 1 million casualties were caused by the explosions. But one must remember that the entire empire at this time had only 3 billion subjects all on one planet. The demonstration, though unremarkable by later standards, served two purposes: the destruction of 2 small cities and the threat of the destruction of others forced House Nippon to concede the lucrative Pacific trade network to House Washington. As the only holder of such weapons, it gained the prestige to displace House Windsor, and the other houses used both research and espionage to right this balance of power, and House Steele found the information about atomics out, and after made its own, and placed the weapons around its territory. Many other houses, including the displaced House Windsor, caught up as well, over the time of around 30 years. As would be the case later in the Imperium, the minor houses also created stockpiles, though it came with deep expense, and this evolved warfare, that instead of house challenging another house and it being answered, with the opposition being destroyed or being displaced, this was not possible when the houses had a stockpile of weapons. What if they got off a counter-strike, and you could not use atomics if you did not know where your enemy was? This might have led to the development of the laws around the War of Assassins, which were used later in the Imperial timeline. But at this moment, overall, wars were fought with economic power, terrorism, and surrogates. As in surrogate states, I assume, doing the fighting for you, rather than you fighting someone directly. A tactic used by ancient Rome. Then when the houses spread to other planets, the use of atomics changed that. If you removed the houses interstellar fleet, then they could not deliver their atomics, and you would waste your rival from orbit and conquer or get concessions from them. This caused houses to surrender to an enemy once that enemy had succeeded in emplacing orbital atomic platforms around your chosen fief. This changed further when Theo Holtzman made the Holtzman engine. Now atomics could be placed at secret locations to be picked up and used when they might be threatened with an attack. Atomics was used against the machines during the Butlerian Jihad. Those enslaved to the machines also would often sabotage any retaliation attempt by the machines. So what this did lead to were anti-atomic feelings, which resulted in the Great Convention, which codified the earlier principles of massive retaliation into imperial law, and to which all of the houses were adherents, although all of the houses maintained their atomic stockpiles until the reign of Emperor Leto. There are only 2 instances of their use. As the Dune Encyclopedia tells it, the first of these was House Begana in 410, apparently not believing that the other houses would stand by the convention. When push came to shove, Duke Quentin decided to use the Begana atomics to force the surrender of the planet Formanis, whose atomics Quentin had seized in a very clever coup. When the commander of Formanis refused to surrender, Duke Quentin began bombarding the surface of the planet with the Begana atomics. House Begana was a major house, but it was probably the perfect target for a test of the convention, since Duke Quentin was a rival of the Emperor and had a manner and personality that had earned him the name The Foul. He had antagonised nearly every one of his neighbours and allies, in quotes, with his high-handed, needlessly cruel, and generally improvident behaviour. Thus it was with some relish that the Vermani garrison commander sent a wave to every possible system, informing them of what Quentin was doing and invoking the convention. Everyone who heard the call realised that this was the test of the convention and thanked his personal icons that it would be such an easy decision to make. The obliteration of House Begana was the true ratification of the Great Convention.